Let's talk about Auburn, Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 6.5. It is the Jackson Arnold game. He was the starting quarterback last year for Oklahoma. Did not go well. He got benched at one point. He got the job back because his backup was turning the ball over. But ultimately, like, it was one where he's doing a lot better at his next stop, which is Auburn. Oklahoma's doing a lot better with John Mateer. Like, it kind of worked out well for both of them. But there's that added element of familiarity, emotion, all of that that's coming into play as he comes back to Oklahoma with an Auburn team that I think they've been at times one of the big surprises so far this season. I think that the Baylor game was eye-opening, but also just like how much more confident Jackson Arnold is, the way they've used his legs. Like there's elements of this offense that we did not see very often, if at all, at Oklahoma last year.
Do you think it was shady when Brent Venables said, I think he's the same guy, when he was asked about Jackson Arnold?
So he gave a few different interesting quotes. So he also didn't, people were like, oh, what do you remember of like when you had that conversation for him to leave? And he's like, I don't want to tell you. So like that was also strange. And then, he was like asked about his skill set and he said, I think he's the same guy. But then elsewhere, he was more complimentary and talking about how it's worked out well for him at Auburn. But I sort of just wonder if that's to downplay it for his own team, who should be familiar with his skill set, but also then is it he did, there was like a little bit of not a cell phone, but like acknowledgments about all the injuries around him. Like he did say like this is what Jackson Arnold looks like with healthy pieces, healthy offensive line, and like running backs and like a supporting cast. So that was a little bit like we didn't have that for him at Oklahoma. But I don't know. I mean, if I'm Jackson Arnold, maybe I take that as something to help me get a little chip on my shoulder. He thinks I'm the same and it wasn't good enough for him. So I'll show him.
Yeah, I would, but it doesn't take much for me to get turned like that. I mean, this game to me is so much about quarterbacks, and it's not about the quarterbacks at the same time, right? Like you had John Mateer at the top of your trust list, and if he goes out there and continues to be able to take the hits that he's taken, but like, creating the run game, throw some of the passes, protect the football, feel really good about Oklahoma's chances. Flip side of that is like if Jackson Arnold looks like Oklahoma Jackson Arnold, you can already just chalk this one up for Oklahoma. And so I think it's where you start to turn the page. What do you think about the offensive line for Auburn? Because I think they've done a good job this year. What do you think about John Mateer if he has to get in a situation where he needs to drop back? He has not been great under pressure this year, right? Like that's where this game becomes super intriguing to me, is if we get past the headlines with the quarterbacks, now we're looking at an interesting game.
Yeah, and I think too with him, John Mateer is he's shot up to Heisman favorites in all the betting markets. But, if he is unable to run it, like, so he is just banged up enough that he can still play, but he can't do what we've seen him do and kind of create all of these plays on the ground. What does that mean? That goes to the point of like, what happens if he needs to be more in the pocket? What if he needs to actually just throw the ball? A lot of interesting questions. And then you also throw in the chess match of Hugh Freeze, even though Auburn's had quarterback issues the last few years, still known as one of the best offensive minds in college football. Brent Venables, hands-on with the Oklahoma defense. We saw the impact of that against Michigan. What does that chess game look like with one of the best defensive minds in the sport? So this one I'm so excited for. And I think it will have a lot to say about like kind of the middle of the SEC. Whether or not Oklahoma's, we talked about this a lot throughout the offseason and into the season, like their win total may not look that different, although maybe it will if John Mateer stays in the Heisman race and they win some games that maybe they're not supposed to. But, you have a team that's trying to show improvement. And obviously, there's a bit of a hot seat situation, although again, I think people are really high in Oklahoma. We haven't talked about that. So you've got that kind of statement, and then it's kind of the same for Hugh Freeze, showing that they can take a step after a couple rough years. So it's like a really fascinating program matchup of where they are in the SEC right now.
Last thing I'll say is to your point about like how people are going to grade them. I do think there are a lot of folks that are like, oh, Oklahoma's a playoff team. I haven't really heard anybody say that. I'm not there.
I don't think so. I think we got to see them again. They got to be able to beat like multiple top tier SEC teams to get there. I think they're a lot better. They're a lot better.
When they beat Michigan, there were a number of analysts who were on that. And I know Vegas isn't always right, but it is interesting that this is a 6.5 point spread for one team who some people said could be a playoff team and another team who nobody is mentioning as a playoff team.
So Vegas might be on the same side as us, you're saying.
Yes.